Warning, the content you are about to hear on this podcast contains some explicit language in the context of interview quotes. Discretion is advised.
I think that I'm just a rock chick.
I would describe my music and my sound as Avril.
It's the best damn thing.
Welcome back to another episode of the Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast, a facts and trivia-based podcast about Canadian pop singer Avril Lavigne. I'm your host, Andrew DeFrancesco. Before we launch into our topic for this episode, let's catch up on the latest Avril news. On March 22nd and 23rd, Avril attended concerts by R&B artist SZA and met her after the second show. On March 24th, Girlfriends and Femme were announced as the opening acts for her European tour. On March 29th, she did a photo shoot for Rolling Stone magazine at her house. It is not known when it will be published. The same day, she asked fans for song requests for the upcoming European leg of the Love Sucks tour, confirming she will include songs like Avalanche, Pity Party, and Mercury in Retrograde. She also said that she would ask Youngblood to join her for a potential performance of I'm a Mess. Additionally, she was voted as the best pop-punk vocalist of all time in a poll by Alternative Press. And now let's jump into today's episode, a comprehensive history of Avril's feuds and controversies. So before we begin, I just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer about the intention with this episode. It's not to make Avril look bad or anything like that, but just to clear up some misunderstandings or give some explanations for maybe fans who might not have been around at the time, especially because some of these things happened quite a long time ago, some of them, and maybe people have heard, like, oh, I heard Avril said or did this thing, and they never got the full story on it, because as we'll see in a lot of these cases, she actually didn't really do the thing or say the thing that she was accused of saying or doing, and she actually ends up being exonerated from a lot of these things. And so I just think it's important, sometimes we don't always get the full story, or like as we'll see in a lot of these cases with written quotes like from magazines and stuff, sometimes it's difficult to tell if the quotes are really what the person said, because sometimes the media likes to twist people's words or misquote them, or sometimes these things didn't even actually happen at all. So I just think it's important to kind of get the full picture sometimes of the things that happened and clear up some things that might have been misunderstood. And I just want to say too that every celebrity has had their share of bad press or feuds with other celebrities, or maybe worked with figures who later turned out to be controversial. And that's not necessarily a reflection on Avril. It's just a thing that happens. You know, like I said, that's not meaning to paint Avril in a bad light at all. It's just, realistically, she's been in Hollywood for 20 years. She's had a very high profile career for 2 decades. And so it would be kind of rare for anything to not have happened. Like, it would almost be kind of strange if nothing had ever happened. And so I just think, you know, the point of this podcast is that it's an Avril Lavigne podcast, and we talk about her career, we talk about her music, and I think it's important to talk about the good and the bad, and not to just like only talk about the positive things, because it's just not an accurate representation of Avril or her career. And like I always say in the beginning of every episode, it's a facts and trivia based podcast. And so these are not just like my own opinions or anything like that. These are factual things that can be proven that happened. And I just think it's important to acknowledge those things. And like I said, in this case, a lot of times Avril actually isn't coming off as badly as it seems. And so I wanted to kind of bring awareness to that and to tell people the full story about some of these things. And I think I'd be remiss in doing this podcast a disservice if I claimed to be a facts and trivia podcast about Avril Lavigne and talk about her career and not mention some of these things that happened. Like I had alluded to in some previous episodes, it took a lot of research to do this episode, and I just hope that at the end of the day that people find it interesting and that maybe it'll clear up some rumors, shed some light on some things that maybe people have always wondered about. So the way that this information is going to be divided is in chronological order of her career, starting with the Let Go era. And there's actually so much information here that I'm going to split it into 2 episodes, so it's a 2-parter. And today we are going to cover from the Let Go era through the Best Damn Thing, and then in the second part we're going to do Goodbye Lullaby up to the present. And that makes it sound as if Avril has been in a lot of trouble and a lot of feuds. And even though there is a lot of information to cover here, that's not really the case. It's just that there's so much detail and, like I said, so much research that went into these that I just wanted to give proper time to each one. And I just thought the best way to do this would be to make it a 2-parter. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is a comprehensive history of Avril's feuds and controversies from the Let Go era through the Best Damn Thing, which is approximately 2002 through 2008. Anti-Britney. OG fans will remember the early days of Avril's career when the media famously tried to pit Avril against pop icon Britney Spears just because they dressed differently and performed different music. Avril has gone on record saying that she went to a Britney concert before being famous because her mother thought she should see other people perform. In April 2002, Avril told Chart Attack magazine, quote, "I mean, the way she dresses. Would you walk around the street in a fucking bra? I'm not trying to diss anyone, but with me, the clothes I wear on stage are the clothes I would wear to school or go shopping. I'm not going to go up on stage and dress different. Britney Spears goes up on stage and dresses like a showgirl. She's not being herself up there because she's dancing like a hoe. Is she a hoe? She says she's a virgin. You know, it's just not clicking. She's doing one thing and saying another thing, you know? It's definitely not what I'm going to do." End quote. She was then asked about this a few months later while on TRL.
What's the deal?
I mean, I feel like the press kind of like to stick words in artists' mouths and kind of exaggerate on things. I mean, like I said, I'm different from her, and
Did you say that she dances like a...
No! I
Just a little bit you said that? Look, the most successful show in the history of MTV is called The Osbournes. They say the every 5 seconds, so you're
I'm
free
not
here.
dissing her, and I don't mean to diss any artist, because, I mean, I don't need to do that. I mean, she's doing her thing, and I'm doing my thing, and that's all I have to say.
To Elle Girl magazine, she said, "I won't wear skanky clothes that show my booty, my belly, or my boobs. I could be Britney. I could be better than Britney." End quote. However, Avril seemed to change her tune while speaking to Entertainment Weekly that November. "I don't like that term, the anti-Britney. It's stupid. I don't believe in that. She's a human being. God, leave her alone." She also defended Britney in an interview with Dateline.
They have to call me the anti-Britney, which they're not. I think that's very rude and very mean. I think it's a dumb game. It's just the media putting up those labels.
The comments about Britney continued into 2007 when Britney was famously going through severe psychological issues and harassment from the paparazzi. Avril was quoted saying, "What's happened to Britney is all down to who she is as a person. If you want a piece of this business, you have to be able to deal with it. You can't complain about the pressures, the paparazzi, the madness, because that's the job." Avril then followed up with a statement on her blog posted on April 5th, 2007. "To my fans, in regards to the article that ran in the Mail on Sunday, Night and Day Live magazine in the UK, I just want to let you know that I was misquoted. When asked about Britney Spears, it quotes me as saying, 'What has happened to Britney is all down to who she is as a person.' I just want to let you know that I never said that. Avril." In an interview with On Air with Ryan Seacrest around 2007, Avril discussed singing Gimme More off Britney's Blackout album at karaoke. She had also previously said she liked Toxic and Everytime from In the Zone. In Maxim's March 2008 issue, Avril came to Britney's defense yet again when she said, "No one else has it as hard as Britney. I feel bad for her. How does she even think with all those flash bulbs? When I'm being followed, everything's thrown off. They run red lights, they cause accidents. She can't even walk to her car. Fucking stalkers." Additionally, Avril attended Britney's Vegas residency in 2016 and took a photo together. "Thank you, Britney Spears, for having me at your show last night," she captioned the photo. "You looked stunning. We had a spectacular time. #girlstrip." In May 2021, Avril commented on one of Britney's Instagram posts asking for Halloween costume ideas. She wrote, "Hi babe, I think you should dress up as me this year, and I'll be you, XOXO. So my thoughts on this is that clearly while Avril had some things to say about Britney at the start, she later shut down the media drama and supported Britney. I think it's kind of natural that when Avril first started, she wasn't completely aware that everything she was going to say would be kind of thrown back at her, or that it was going to be written about in the media headlines and that people were going to blow things up. I think she was probably just, she was a teenager and, she saw that like, oh, Britney and I are really, really different. And, Avril just didn't agree with maybe the way that Britney dressed, or she was not about the whole bubblegum pop thing. She's like, yeah, I like to write my own music. I like to sing live. I don't like the whole background dancers thing. And so Avril knew that they were different, but I don't think that necessarily was the thing that bothered her. I think maybe she kept getting compared to Britney a lot because Britney was the big thing at the time and the bubblegum pop star thing was the big thing at the time. And, I think that a lot of people pointed out that they were different. And I think maybe Avril just wanted to kind of say, I'm not Britney Spears and I don't intend to be Britney Spears. I'm not trying to be Britney Spears. I'm me. I'm Avril Lavigne. And, I'm not a pop chick. I'm a rock chick, that kind of thing. And so I could kind of see why Avril sort of fed into that a little bit. And then once she realized that her comments were getting blown out of proportion, she was like, you know what, let's just stop the comparisons. She's her and I'm me, we're each doing our own thing. And obviously since then, like I said, Avril said that she liked a few of her songs and she went to attend her Vegas show and things like that. So clearly anything that happened, 20 years ago is not the case now. However, that is not the case with another pop princess, Christina Aguilera. While speaking to Entertainment Weekly in November 2002, Avril commented on Christina's music video for Dirty, saying, "Have you seen Christina's video? Poor girl." About a decade later, Avril described her experience meeting Christina backstage at the Brit Awards in 2011.
And Boy George was very excited to meet you, wasn't he?
That was really cool. He was standing right behind us, and I was like, is that who I think it is? That's really cool. And I decided to walk over. I'm a very shy person, and say hello, and I didn't know what he would do. And he said, "Oh, hi," and he knew who I was. And I was like, oh, my God.
Of course he knows who you are.
That was cool.
He
was super nice to us.
He wants to get your
Unlike Christina
autograph.
Aguilera, who was really mean to me when I said hi to her.
Oh!
I swear to God, I said to my friends, well, okay, you know what? I'm going to go over to Boy George, and hopefully he won't pull a Christina on me. And you know what? I was pleasantly surprised.
I'm pleased to hear. Are you ever going to talk to Christina? I mean, I'm being told to wrap it up, but frankly, I'm not, because we are getting goss here. I mean, are you ever going to talk to Christina Aguilera again?
Well, we're label mates, and I kind of assume just we also have the same manager.
Makes
by
you family,
going over. I'm
practically.
a very shy, introverted person going over and introducing myself that, you know, hi, you know, we kind of do the same thing, but I kind of got that.
Oh, not the ha ha ha. Guys, I've really got to wrap. I've got to wrap it up now. I'm so sorry.
So my take on this is that perhaps what happened is that Christina remembered the comment that Avril made all those years ago, and maybe that's why she might have kind of snubbed her when Avril tried to like make nice and say hi and stuff. And maybe Christina was like, oh, you know, like I remember what you said about me. But at the same time, I think that was like so long ago. But, you know, clearly Avril had grown up and matured a little bit and tried to make amends. She was trying to bury the hatchet. And I think Christina probably should have just let it go. So to this day, neither of them have really spoken about that. And they have never really been in the same room ever since. Kelly Clarkson. In August 2002, Kelly Clarkson and Justin Guarini presented Avril with the MTV Video Music Award for Best New Artist. As Avril went up to receive the award, it looked as though she shoved Kelly out of the way. However, it's pretty clear from watching the video that the trophy simply got caught in Avril's hair, and she was trying to untangle it as Kelly was in the process of giving Avril a hug. Kelly discussed the incident on The Howard Stern Show in 2017.
I was thinking about you getting elbowed in the face by someone, and I put it together.
Who was it?
Because that year you presented an award on the VMAs to Avril Lavigne. Did she elbow you in the face?
It was her, but I will say this. Years later,
Yeah.
She saw me and she said, "Oh my gosh, I don't know. People keep saying I elbowed you in the face, and I'm so sorry." Like, and then I don't know if she did it. So
Right.
But I don't know if she felt bad about it or like she didn't mean to do it or what. But
Wow.
yeah. But it felt purposeful.
That seems like an unusual story.
I think what I was bummed about is I'm a fan of hers. Like I think I loved her music. Like I'm with you. I loved all that.
And
stuff.
didn't she write one of your hits?
She wrote Breakaway, actually.
Yeah, she wrote Breakaway.
Yeah, and that's when
making
she ended
up
coming,
for it.
Yeah.
That's when she came back on.
Because that's so strange that the girl who elbowed you in the face actually was responsible for one of your biggest hits.
However, Kelly seems to have gotten over it as she invited Avril on her talk show last year. So like I said about this, if you go back and watch the video, you can clearly see what happened. I don't know why to this day people insist that Avril like shoved Kelly out of the way, because it's so obvious when you watch the video. It was just a very poorly timed set of awkward things happening where Kelly was trying to give Avril a congratulatory hug, and I'm sure Avril like might have realized that was happening, but at the same time, she's like, oh, I mean, think about Avril, like she just won like her first award and she's going up on the stage to get it. And so there's probably like a million things running through her mind. And she's like, oh, I have to like make an acceptance speech now. I'm trying to get up on the stage. There's cameras, everybody's watching me. And you know, this woman's hugging her, and then at the same time, the trophy's getting caught in her hair, and she's like, oh, I gotta untangle it. She can't see what's happening. Like, she didn't realize Kelly was probably right there. And so that's just how it looked. But obviously, if you watch the video, you can just clearly see it was accidental, like purely accidental. And what's actually interesting is that I think a lot of people thought when Kelly had Avril on her talk show that they were going to address it, which they didn't. So I guess maybe they both forgot about it, or, you know, they just like don't care about it at this point. So it's clearly not a big deal anymore. So now that brings us to one of Avril's most known kind of like feuds or controversies, I guess, where she was oftentimes her songwriting was called into question a lot. And we're going to begin with The Matrix. The Matrix is the songwriting team that helped Avril pen several songs from her debut album Let Go, including Complicated, Skater Boy, and I'm With You. There were conflicting accounts given by both sides about how much Avril contributed to the songwriting. The Matrix claimed Avril only changed a few words, while Avril claimed she contributed more fully to the songs. In a 2004 interview with Songwriter Universe, The Matrix explained their process when working with Avril. Quote, "We began collaborating in LA in June 2001, and the first song we came up with was Complicated. Avril loved it, and Josh Sarubin immediately thought it was a hit. Arista president L.A. Reid freaked out when he heard our first 2 songs with Avril. We ended up working the whole summer with her. With Avril, we would come up with the initial ideas and play her the melody and concept. She would then come up with great melody and lyric ideas. 5 of the songs we wrote together made the album, and we finished the album on October 27, 2001, which was Avril's birthday." So I just have to jump in here for a second just to say I'm not sure of the validity of this quote since they got Avril's birthday wrong. Avril's birthday is September 27th, not October 27th. And I also am not sure if they really finished the album in 2001 because I've read different sources that say they finished it in early 2002, but this is just the quote that I found. In a 2006 interview with Sound on Sound, they tell the story of writing Complicated. Complicated commenced with Graham Edwards, as usual, playing acoustic guitar while Scott Spock and Lauren Christie both sat at the piano. "I was just jamming around the chorus," Edwards recalls, kind of playing it straight like a rock song, and Scott said, "No man, you can swing that." And then Lauren said, "No, it's gotta be like this." So we all got involved and the song evolved. "The verse we came up with was completely different to the one that ended up on the record," notes Christie. "We wrote the whole song and then went, you know what, the verse is just not catchy enough. So we came back into the studio and rewrote the verse, and I now love it. To me, it's as hooky as the chorus. In fact, when we were originally singing the chorus, why do you have to go and make things so complicated? The words just popped out, and it was at that moment we started to think about the lyrics and why the song would be called Complicated. I always try to channel how old the artist is, and I recalled a boyfriend of mine when I was 16. He could be really romantic with me, but every time any of his friends showed up, he'd immediately remove his arm from around my shoulders, put it in his pocket, and light up a cigarette with the other hand. I remember thinking, wow, that's amazing. He's so insecure about being himself around me." Scott and Graham had been through similar experiences. "It was all about trying to be cool," Spock explains. "That was the key. However, we tried to pull the number in a direction where it was not such a 16-year-old song. We tried to make it appeal across the board so that no matter if you're 16 or you're 30, you relate to that whole concept. Life is complicated." Christie agrees. "The part that goes, life's like this, you fall and you crawl and you break and you take what you get and you turn it into honesty. That was us trying to take the song to a deeper level, saying it doesn't matter how old you are probably gonna fuck up and have bad things happen to you, but that's okay. You'll have to deal with it." When Josh Sarubin, the A&R executive who had signed Avril Lavigne to Arista, first heard Complicated, he immediately knew it was right for her. And when executive producer Antonio L.A. Reid concurred, the track became her first single and the Matrix were given carte blanche to write and produce another 10 tracks. "After that, it was fun," says Christie, "because we knew what we were doing. We knew the direction and we just had a blast. We spent 2 months writing 10 songs." End quote. So from this quote, it sounds like Avril was not involved in the writing of Complicated, yet Avril tells a different story. An interview from Rolling Stone magazine in 2003 stated, "Though the publishing royalties get split evenly among Christie, Edwards, Spock, and Lavigne, Avril implies that she was the primary author of the songs on Let Go. She says that when she was working with the Matrix, quote, one guy was in the room while we were writing, but he didn't write the guitar, and he didn't write the lyrics or the melody. Me and Lauren sat down and did all the lyrics together for every single song. Graham would come up with some guitar stuff, and I'd be like, yeah, I like that, or no, I don't like that. None of those songs aren't from me. When I wrote Complicated," she says, "I was feeling what the song talks about, that there are tons of people in the world who are fake, who are two-faced. And when I," meaning the interviewer, "asked her how long it took her to write that song, she says simply, maybe 2 hours, without equivocation. Songwriting is like that for me," she adds with a snap of her fingers. "Someone can say, go write a song, and I can do it. I can write a song a day." But according to The Matrix, they wrote the bulk of the 3 hit singles by themselves, following their first meeting with Lavigne. "With those songs, we conceived the ideas on guitar and piano," says Christie. "Avril would come in and sing a few melodies, change a word here or there. She came up with a couple of things in Complicated. Like, instead of take off your stupid clothes, she wanted it to say preppy clothes." End quote. On July 10th, 2007, The Matrix released a statement found on popdirt.com. Quote, "When comments were made some 5 years ago to Rolling Stone magazine, we were viewing to defend The Matrix's songwriting credibility and involvement, which had been presented and characterized to us as being under attack. People were suggesting a sizable variance between what we experienced to have taken place in the writing of the works and representing us as unfairly insisting on more of a songwriter percentage than we should. We were very much hurt to think anyone would accuse us of taking credit for more than we were due, much less someone whom we found ourselves so close with and supportive of. The whole matter caught us off guard and was disappointing. We are personal friends with everyone we have worked with, from Jonathan Davis of Korn to Ricky Martin to Jason Mraz and Shakira, and we've never had any so-called differences with any of them as to the fair allocation of song splits. Our music is our life, and it's all personal. It's where we live. We always put our hearts and respect into what we do, both in and out of the studio. While we stand behind our work and believe that we were both supportive and fair in our interactions, it pains us to see that now these provoked and youthful words of both sides from interviews of over 5 years ago are being used to kick Avril and validate another's case of her not being a writer or talent. This is in reference to the Chantal Kreviazuk songwriting allegations, which we'll get to next. Despite any varying perspectives on how we wished to allocate our mutual writings, we had a fabulous and unique experience with Avril, who was then a 16-year-old rapidly growing songwriter with tremendous raw talent. The songs were conceived on piano and guitar by 4 people, The Matrix, 3, and Avril, and to be clear, Avril was instrumental in the song's creation. We were all very close during the making of the record. When it became a huge hit, people who were not there at the time of the making of the record decided to draw and put forth in the press their own conclusions as to how creativity took place. This continues. We remain big Avril fans both musically and personally, as well as very much recognize and believe in her and her talents. We wish her much continued success and know her talent will shine through these matters and long beyond. Best, The Matrix, end quote. Lauren Christie, an original member of The Matrix, later made amends with Avril when they met at BB Rexha's Women in Harmony event in 2018, as Avril was working on Head Above Water. They collaborated on several songs for the album. Avril also thanked Lauren with a social media post for Let Go's 20th anniversary and during her speech while receiving her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which Lauren also attended. So my thoughts on this is that most likely they each just had their own agendas. Avril was trying to make her name known as a songwriter. That was kind of her big thing that really set her apart from other pop stars of the day, is that most other singers at that time did not write their own music, whereas Avril did. And so she was really trying to get that point across and say, like, I'm not just like your typical pop star because I write my own music. And I think it makes sense that The Matrix wanted to take credit for making those hits because those songs became hits. And I think at this time, The Matrix had worked with a few people, but Avril was like one of the big ones that they worked with early on. And obviously having 3 big singles, Complicated, Skid Your Boy, I'm With You, in a row. And, you know, Avril just blew up. I think it makes total sense that they wanted to say, hey, we were like the backbone of those songs. Like Avril wrote some of it, but we were like the main writers on those songs. And obviously having the credit attributed to them would get them more work with other artists, which is what happened. They would go on to work with a bunch of other artists as well, like Hilary Duff and Britney Spears, Miranda Cosgrove, like so many other artists that wanted to work with them because they saw what they did with Avril. And so they obviously want to recreate that success for themselves. And so I think it just makes sense that each of them had their own agendas. Like I can believe that The Truth is somewhere in the middle. Like they kind of at first made it sound as though Avril didn't do anything but change a few words. And then Avril would kind of make it sound like she practically wrote the whole song by herself. So I think that The Truth is somewhere in the middle, that maybe The Matrix came up with ideas that they thought Avril would like or that she would relate to. And then Avril would come in and say, well, can we maybe change like some of these lyrics or maybe do this melody instead of this melody? And so I think that Avril did have a significant hand in the songs, but maybe not as much as she was like implying. But like I said, I think, you know, it makes sense. Avril was trying to make her name known as a songwriter, and The Matrix wanted credit for making those hits so that they could get more work. But obviously, like I said, I think at this point, it doesn't really matter because Avril has since gone on to have hits with different songwriters. So it's like it shows that she can write songs by herself or that she can make hit songs regardless of who she works with. And as far as The Matrix themselves, The Matrix doesn't actually exist anymore, but Lauren Christie is still an active songwriter. And she and Avril did work together on the Head Above Water album. And like it's clear that Avril still has so much love and respect for Lauren and vice versa. And so I think whatever might have happened 20 years ago, it clearly is water under the bridge at this point. And speaking of Hilary Duff, Avril had a well-known feud with this Disney star. Avril was quoted in Newsweek, March 2004, saying, "I read in a magazine that I was supposedly mad at my fans for dressing like me." They quoted Hilary Duff saying, "Avril needs to appreciate her fans more." I'm like, excuse me? First off, it's not even true. I never said that. And second, who the hell cares what she has to say about my fans? Hilary Duff's such a goody-goody, such a mommy's girl, end quote. The false quote that Hilary reacted to was, "I sometimes see girls who are dressed like me and made up like me. Get a life, you know?" So Hilary then said to World Entertainment News Network, "I think some of the things Avril said about her fans were kind of mean-spirited. She said that she was pissed off at her fans for copying her style. I was like, you should be happy that these people like you and look up to you," end quote. So Avril then said to People magazine in March 2004, "If she doesn't shut her mouth, then I'll shut it for her. Hilary is more of an actress than a musician. People wrote songs for her," end quote. And in an interview with Mix 98.5 in Boston, she said, "I think it's a compliment that my fans dress like me. I'm like, who are you to talk about me? You should know better. Don't talk trash with me. You can go screw yourself." Hillary's rep replied, "Hillary is sorry that her remark got blown out of proportion. She's never met Avril, but she is a huge fan of her music." Hillary then said to Time magazine in 2004, "With Avril Lavigne, her CD is in my car right now. You know what I did? I said something I shouldn't have said. I said she should respect her fans more. And then she called me a mommy's girl or a good girl. I don't care. I am a good girl." End quote. To this day, neither party has resolved the conflict or spoken of it since. So my take on this situation is that Hillary was seemingly fed a fake quote and reacted, which I think is understandable because if you read the original quote, it does sound like Avril is kind of making fun of her fans or like she's mad at her fans for dressing like her and saying like, get a life. So I kind of don't blame Hillary for being like, why would you say that? And then Avril understandably reacted to Hillary's statement where she's calling her out because, you know, it's like, I never said that. And it's like, why are you even talking about me? I'm not sure why Hillary was given this quote or why she was reacting to it. So to me, it seems like drama that was made up by the media, possibly for clickbait or something like that. So I think both sides are understandable where Hillary was reacting to something, you know, in good conscience, like thinking this was a real thing that Avril said. And then Avril obviously got mad because it's like, I never actually even said that at all. Banned on TRL. While promoting her second album, Under My Skin, on an episode of MTV's TRL in May 2004, Avril flipped the bird on camera, which got her banned from ever appearing on the show again. However, she was reinstated in 2007. Chantal Kreviazuk. In 2007, Avril's former songwriting partner Chantal Kreviazuk, who Avril worked with on Under My Skin, made allegations about Avril's songwriting. Chantal said, "I find it funny that it's in performing songwriter. I mean, Avril, songwriter? Avril doesn't really sit down and write songs by herself or anything. Avril will also cross the ethical line, and no one says anything. That's why I'll never work with her again. I sent her a song 2 years ago called Contagious, and I just saw the track listing to this album, and there's a song called Contagious on it, and my name's not on it. What do you do with that?" End quote. On July 6, 2007, Avril wrote an open letter on her website saying, "I was going to be the bigger person and not reply when I read Chantal Kreviazuk's article in Performing Songwriter magazine. Now that all the media have caught on to her little interview, I need to speak. Chantal's comments are damaging to my reputation and a clear defamation of my character, and I am considering taking legal action. Chantal has accused me of taking a song idea from her because I happen to have a song on my new record with the same title. For the record, I wrote a song with Evan Taubenfeld, which coincidentally has the same title as a song Chantal had sent me a few years ago. Our songs have no similarities and opposite meanings, i.e. different lyrics, different melody, different genres. In Chantal's own words, quote, "The only similarity is in the title. I originally wrote this with Evan for his record, and I ended up with it. Funny enough, when I decided to put Contagious on my album, we had to change the words from she to he in order for it to work on my record. There are hundreds of songs out there with the title Contagious, 75 plus on iTunes alone. Chantal has also made false accusations about my writing skills. I am so over this topic. This letter is not about this. I am not going to sit here and defend my writing skills. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I know who I am and what I have done and accomplished, and no one can take that away from me. My decision to discontinue working with Chantal after co-writing together on my second record was simply based on the fact that we had no hits together. That is why her name is not on this record, despite her numerous attempts to be included, which were always denied. From my perspective, this is a clear case of bitterness. Chantal is upset that she didn't get to be a part of my record. She did email me after the article came out apologizing, and I forgive her, but I have to put the truth out there so my fans are not confused by these false accusations. Let it be crystal clear that I have not ripped anyone off or done anything wrong. I have never had to deal with anything publicly like this and surely never wanted to. I do not deserve this negative press and attention. I take pride in the songs that I write and appreciate the opportunities to work with some great writers and musicians. I would like to say more, but my lawyers have advised me not to. Why is it when you get to a certain level, people want to attack you? And now I have said my piece." End quote. A few days later, Chantal retracted her statements, saying, "When I saw the track listing to Avril's new record, it caught my attention that she had the same title as a song I sent her a while back. When I heard it, I immediately realized it was a coincidence. The songs have nothing in common. My statements and any inference from my statements, which call into question Avril's ethics or ability as a respected and acclaimed songwriter, should be discarded and are retracted." End quote. So pretty obviously there, it was just a simple kind of misunderstanding where Chantal sent Avril a song called Contagious, and then a couple years later she sees a song with the same title on Avril's record, and she doesn't see her name listed in the writing credits, so her natural inclination for whatever reason is to think she must have stolen it from me and not like any possibility that it could just be a song with the same title, which is exactly what happened. And it's pretty clear that once, you know, Avril said she did apologize and she said she retracted her statement. So it's like pretty obvious that, you know, Chantal just kind of jumped the gun and spoke out of turn without realizing first, like doing some research first to see what the song actually sounded like before making that accusation. Girlfriend lawsuit. Songwriting allegations continued to plague Avril well into the Best Damn Thing era, when she was famously sued by members of a band called the Rubinoos, who claimed she had plagiarized their song from 1979 called I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend when writing her 2007 single Girlfriend. The lawsuit was filed on July 2nd, 2007 by frontman Tommy Dunbar and songwriter James Gangwer. The part of the song in question that they claimed was similar was the hook. In I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend, the hook begins with, hey, you, I wanna be your boyfriend, which is very similar to Girlfriend's hook, hey, you, I want to be your girlfriend. Lucas Dr. Luke Gottwald, the song's co-writer and producer, said neither he or Avril had ever previously heard of the Rubinoos. According to an article by NME from July 2007, Avril denied the allegations in a blog post on her website and cited songs such as Get Off My Cloud by the Rolling Stones and I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend by the Ramones with similar lyrics. She wrote that she has, quote, never ripped anyone off. She went on to say they have a song called I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend that has no musical similarities to the song Girlfriend that Luke Gottwald and I wrote together. They claim that a small part of the lyrics are the same and are saying that I took these from them. I had never heard this song in my life, and their claim is based on 5 words. All songs share similar lyrics and emotions. As humans, we speak one language. Simply put, I have been falsely accused of ripping their song off. Luke and I have done nothing wrong, and there is no merit to their claim, end quote. Additionally, Avril's manager at the time, Terry McBride, called the claims baseless. Dunbar and McBride then consulted musicologists to analyze the 2 songs. Interestingly, Dunbar's musicologist said the 2 songs shared a, quote, unusually high degree of similarity, while McBride's musicologist reported that they do not share any significant lyrical or melodic content. While McBride asserted the 2 songs were different, he stated that Avril would be willing to settle the case to avoid expensive legal proceedings. In January 2008, Dunbar and Gangwer's attorney confirmed that a confidential settlement had been reached but did not comment further. However, Dunbar and Gangwer later released a joint statement on January 15, 2008, saying, we are satisfied that any similarities between the 2 songs resulted from Avril and Luke's use of certain common and widely used lyrics. We therefore completely exonerate Avril and Luke from any wrongdoing of any kind in connection with the claims made by us in our lawsuit, end quote. Following the settlement, Avril commented, well, they didn't win, but that happens all the time in the music business. I am not the first artist, nor will I be the last to go through this, end quote. Additionally, Avril's longtime songwriting partner, Evan Taubenfeld, defended Avril with a statement of his own on his MySpace blog on July 12, 2007. He wrote, originally I wasn't going to post anything regarding this, since I think it's absolutely fucking ridiculous. That and I'm kind of nobody, so it doesn't really matter. But for whatever reason, the issue seems to be only escalating, and I want to just clear some shit up. Avril is one of my dearest friends in the entire world, and I find it pretty unbelievable how contorted the stories I'm hearing are. Chantel ate her words already, so I'll let that issue pass. The Rubinoos, who are fucking assholes. Check out their shitty-ass MySpace, and I think it's pretty obvious that they're dying for attention and publicity. This is a pathetic attempt to hurt someone for their own benefit. I'm not a musicologist or whatever those fancy dudes are called, but I know this. I've written a shitload of songs with Avril, 7 of which we've been lucky enough to have recorded together and released on her records, and I can honestly say that she was a huge part of creative force behind all of them. Any accusations that she isn't a songwriter are ludicrous. The one thing in common with every hit she's ever had is that she wrote on them, not someone else. The Matrix, Chantel, and even myself. We come and go, but she'll always be writing good tunes for her records. Anytime her and I have ever written anything that resembles something else, she'll make note of it and will abandon it. So anyone who says that she knowingly rips people off are just hating on her. It's very easy to pull and pick someone apart once they're huge, but the truth is you don't sell 25 million records unless at the core there is a large amount of talent and innovation to drive the thing. So basically, if you're a hater, fuck off. I think the fans of her music know the truth. And to be honest, it doesn't matter. In 6 months, the Rubinoos will be back to serving up fries for us, and Avril will be on a huge tour enjoying her long-earned successes. End quote. So I just wanted to mention a funny little story about this, is that I actually did a school project on this when I was in college, or what some of you might know as university. So I took this math class, but it wasn't like a real math class. It was like math class for liberal arts. So it was like more logic based and that kind of thing. And so we were doing this unit on logic and proving things. And so we had to pick a topic and write a paper about it. And so I actually chose this exact scenario as my school project. And my professor liked it so much that she actually asked me to like talk about it in front of the class. Because I guess it was just kind of interesting and unique. But basically, I talked about this exact thing in the paper, and I went through all of the evidence, went through all of the claims, and then basically refuted every claim to prove that Avril and Luke didn't copy the song. And so a lot of the evidence that I gave for it was exactly some of the things that Avril and Luke mentioned themselves. Like, neither of them had ever heard of the band, the Rubinoos. Like, I have to say, I'm an American. If not for this case, I would have never heard of the Rubinoos. And I think that that's probably the case for a lot of people. And that's exactly what they probably wanted to achieve, is that they didn't have a lot of notoriety. And so they thought, hey, here's a way we can kind of get some publicity out of this. So it's unlikely that they had ever heard the song. If they hadn't heard of the band, they probably wouldn't have heard of the song. It was a minor hit in America before Avril was even born, so pretty unlikely that she would have ever heard it, especially because growing up in Canada in the 80s and 90s, and her parents, as we know, did not let her listen to a lot of secular music, or the music that she did listen to was mostly a lot of country music. It's so unlikely that she would have ever heard this song. Dr. Luke is a different matter because we don't really know, but definitely for Avril, pretty unlikely that she would have ever heard of it. And like the other thing that I mentioned in the case too is that like a lot of these cases usually happen when a song becomes popular and artists just kind of want to cut of the success. Like we've seen that with Taylor Swift, for example. That's a big thing going on right now. She's been doing the re-recordings of her old music, is that a song becomes big, a song becomes popular. That's the only reason why anybody would ever say like, hey, I'm going to sue you over this and I want a cut of the success if it becomes popular. When a song doesn't become popular, nobody cares about it, obviously. So that's what happens. A song becomes popular and then artists start kind of claiming, well, it sounds kind of like my song that wasn't nearly as successful and that like nobody ever heard of otherwise, basically. And what I think is interesting too about this, which I did not mention this in the paper because I didn't know about this at the time, but from doing my research now, I noticed how they exonerated them after getting their payday, which, is pretty suspicious. I don't think that there's completely no merit to the case, because I think if you've ever listened to the songs side by side, the hooks are a little bit similar enough to like make a mention of it, to make note of it. It's like, hey, you, I want to be your boyfriend. And then like, hey, you, I want to be your girlfriend. Like they are actually kind of similar, but that's like the only thing they have in common. Like, I don't think it's enough. I don't think they're similar enough to say that it's plagiarized or that like they knowingly took this. Again, it's from a very like not very well-known song at all. So, and like they're pretty common words and phrases being used, which like even they themselves admitted later. So I think it was just a coincidence, and like, Avril, when she talked about writing the song, she's like, yeah, I was drunk and like Luke was playing some chords on the guitar and I just kind of started singing like, hey, you, I want to be your girlfriend. Like it's just something that she came up with out of the blue and she was like kind of drunk, it's like, it's just not that deep. So, I kind of get their point that they're like, maybe upon hearing it for the first time, they're like, hey, that kind of sounds like our song. But I feel like they could have just left it alone. Like, I feel like there was some reason why they specifically wanted to come after them, because they wanted, a payday, I guess, or they wanted to draw some attention to their own song that otherwise before this, I don't think anybody had honestly ever heard of. But the songwriting allegations were just the beginning of the controversies Girlfriend would face. In August 2008, the official music video for Girlfriend became the first video ever to reach 100 million views on YouTube. However, there were allegations that fans had cheated in order to make it reach that number. The fan site Avril Band-Aid circulated a web link that would automatically reload the video every 15 seconds. However, according to an article by Wired, a YouTube spokesman said protocols were in place to prevent play count manipulation. He said, "We have safeguards in place that limit the efficiency of this type of behavior to make sure that advertising campaigns running on YouTube only reach legitimate viewers and are in no way affected by inflated view counts or gaming activities." End quote. The same article, however, states fans, quote, apparently claimed their online YouTube play count inflator tool, still online, was a trick designed to generate publicity that propelled the video into the number one spot, end quote. Avril's manager, Terry McBride, made an additional statement. He said, "To be clear, we do not sanction any manipulation of any situation. It's not within Avril's or network's DNA to do so. Any postings that fans have made on the sites that Avril controls have been immediately taken down." End quote. So just to add my 2 cents on this, I will say I don't really know that much about this because I was not an active part of the fandom at the time, and I certainly wasn't a member of Avril Band-Aids at the time, so I have no idea if the whole web link circulation thing is actually true. But I also don't really buy the whole thing about like, oh, that was just made up to draw attention to it so that it would get more views. Like, I don't really buy that, to be honest. In my research, I did actually find like the original post that was posted with the web link that can like be traced back to the old forum. And so, you know, I kind of believe that it was a thing that happened. I'm not sure how common it was back then, but it's certainly very common at this point. So many fandoms ever since then have tried to like break the all-time viewing record on YouTube for several artists like, you know, Taylor Swift, BTS, Ariana Grande. Like so many fandoms have tried to, you know, break the record for the most views on a YouTube video by doing pretty much exactly the same thing, like just replaying the video over and over and over, having it like set on mute and just having it on a constant loop like all day long. So while I don't agree with that, like I think that, you know, it's better for an artist to have legitimate views than to just have the most, and like most of them aren't even real views. I get why people do it, and it's so commonplace now that I don't even think it really like matters that much anymore. Like when you know that at this point you can pretty much assume that all of the views on every artist's video is inflated, I kind of just don't think it's really like that big of a deal at this point. But certainly back then it was, you know, less of a thing, and so I can kind of see why when people thought like, hey, wait, I don't think these views were achieved legitimately, I can see why it was kind of a big thing in the news at the time. Lastly, Avril's former co-writer and producer Butch Walker alleges that Dr. Luke ripped off Walker's track The Best Damn Thing to make Girlfriend in his 2011 memoir Drinking with Strangers, Music Lessons from a Teenage Bullet Belt. He is referred to as Larry in the book, and Avril is not mentioned by name, but it's clear from the context he means Dr. Luke and Avril. Unfortunately, any screenshots from the book that were posted on such sites as ATRL or Avril Band-Aids can no longer be found. However, I did find a summary on the site Gaga Daily in a thread titled Dr. Luke Blacklist in a post dated February 20th, 2016, which says the following. So just a quick little disclaimer before I read the entire thing is I don't know if this is like an actual excerpt from the book itself or that it might be somebody summarizing, because like the way that the language is where it refers to Butch Walker like in the third person instead of in first person like it would be in his book. So I think it's like a summary that someone is saying. So if you want to have a look at the book yourself, you can find the book on Amazon and be able to read it for yourself. I unfortunately never got a chance to read the book myself. I do remember reading the screenshots, and like what I read here is like seems to match up with what I remember reading from the screenshots. But unfortunately, like I said, those screenshots can't be found anymore. But like I said, if you want to read the book for yourself, it's pretty widely available. But I think basically what I'm about to read to you is basically like a summary that someone wrote after reading the book. So they said, an industry insider wrote an entire book about Hollywood shenanigans, Drinking with Strangers by Butch Walker, including early Dr. Luke exposés. Dr. Luke apparently is known for chopping up old songs on Pro Tools and changing the smallest part necessary to consider it a new song. So he chops up an old song he did with another artist, gives it to Pink, basically selling the same song twice, but she didn't know until after the song was out, and she was pissed. She confronted him about it and told him to F off, she would never work with him again. He says she never liked him in the first place, but was working with Max Martin, and this guy was brought in. Similar stuff happened with Avril Lavigne concerning her song Girlfriend. He then pulled something similar on Butch with Avril's song. I don't know her songs, but he said it was like Oh Mickey, which just as a note, I think when they refer to Oh Mickey, they're meaning the song Hey Mickey by Tony Basil. He manipulated her in a way that made it look like she took part in him stealing Butch's idea for a song that he presented to Avril before she met Dr. Luke. Apparently they, Luke and Avril, were sued and settled out of court by some other party. Butch claims he essentially stole $1 million from him because the song was a hit. He then goes on to say, without naming names, that Dr. Luke is a 40-year-old cokehead Adidas tracksuit-wearing loser despite having a number of massive hits. He came up with the idea and got clearance from Mickey, aka The Best Damn Thing. The label liked his concept and it was going to be the first single on her album. He was the first person working on the album. Months later, she's working with Luke on another track. Plays the Mickey song, he tells her he can do better. Then she goes to Butch and wants to make changes. Butch thinks Luke was whispering in her ear about it, because by this point, Luke is massive and he has artists believing that whatever they did with other producers, he can outdo it because look, he's that surefire hitmaker guy. When Luke started remaking it, Butch told him he would not share producer credit. So Luke and Avril start working on the song, but Butch didn't know exactly what was being done because everyone surrounding the project were all of a sudden tight-lipped. But her band spilled that they were rehearsing a song that sounded like Mickey, and that's when he knew what was going on. Luke just changed the chorus, which he stole from another group and got sued for. When Butch called him on it, Luke was surprised Butch heard the final product and then flipped out and was acting guilty. He then blames Avril for everything. Butch told him to watch his back because he will be effing him up next time he sees him. Avril felt so bad she burst out in tears when she finally had the guts to call him and basically apologize. Butch confronts Luke at a holiday party, and all Luke can say is that he has all of these top 5 hits on the radio at the moment, like some 4-year-old. Butch is thrown out of the party after he is pulled off of Luke. End of story. End quote. So my thoughts on this, like I said, I do remember reading the screenshots that someone had taken directly from the book. And so I do remember, like, especially the story about Avril calling him up crying and like not knowing what had happened and all that. I do remember reading that in the original screenshots. So I definitely think this is a pretty accurate summary of what Butch wrote in the book about what happened between him and Dr. Luke, and how he's basically insinuating that Dr. Luke ripped off The Best Damn Thing to Make Girlfriend. And I can honestly believe that this happened. I mean, some of the stuff that he wrote in there about like how Dr. Luke, he's implying that he stole the chorus from the song that we just talked about earlier with the Ruby News, which we kind of already said, I don't think that's actually true. So I think maybe some of the things Butch is saying are a little bit off the mark a little bit. But as far as like thinking that he took The Best Damn Thing and then made Girlfriend, I can believe that happened, because the two songs do sound similar, and a similar situation even happened with another artist, which he already wrote about as well, with Pink, where he took another song that he had done for another artist and then kind of made it like similar and then gave it to Pink, and she found out about it and she was really mad about it. So the fact that another situation actually happened with another artist kind of shows that, like, I don't think it's that difficult to believe that this happened with Avril as well. Like I said, the two songs do sound very similar. Like, they both have that kind of cheerleader pop inspired like beat and everything. And they're both kind of like bratty in terms of their topics and lyrics. Like I talked about before on the episode I did a long time ago on the Best Damn Thing album, what basically happened was Avril started working with Butch pretty early on in the process, which makes sense because they had just worked together on her previous album. So it kind of makes sense that before Avril like really knew what she wanted to do, she was just going to work with people that she was already familiar with. And so she was working with Butch early on in the process, and then the label wasn't hearing a hit. And so that's when Dr. Luke was brought in. And so I can definitely believe that this is kind of how the events played out, is that The Best Damn Thing, the song, was created first, and then Dr. Luke was brought in and was like, oh, I can make this song, but make it like 10 times better. Which, to be fair, he did, but that's obviously not what we're talking about here. I Don't Have to Try. Girlfriend wasn't the only song from The Best Damn Thing to be allegedly plagiarized. Another track called I Don't Have to Try was compared to a song released in 2003 by the artist Peaches called I'm the Kinda. On July 10, 2007, Rolling Stone wrote an article on the topic, stating the comparison was first noted by gossip blogger Perez Hilton. The first 20 seconds of I Don't Have to Try have drawn comparisons to the beginning of I'm the Kinda, with both songs containing similar lyrics and a rap intro. Avril did not comment on this allegation, so it's unclear if it was purely coincidental or simply inspired by Peach's song, but not necessarily a direct copy. So I did listen to the beginning of both songs, and I can see like where the comparison is. And I think that Avril is actually a Peaches fan. And like I said, because she didn't comment on it, it is kind of possible that maybe she was kind of doing like an homage type of thing, but not necessarily like trying to copy. Maybe just like, you know, she's a really big Peaches fan. Like, oh, I want to kind of do something similar. But while the comparison was noted, like Peaches never tried to sue her. It never went to court or anything like what happened with Girlfriend. So, you know, it's just something that people noticed. And like, there are similarities between songs all the time with, you know, lyrics or musical structure or whatever. And so, yeah, like the intros of both songs are kind of noticeably similar, but I don't think it's enough to like say that Avril plagiarized or anything. So with all of that, you can now see why I had to make this episode into two parts, because we've just concluded part one of some of Avril's most known feuds and controversies and the real stories behind them. So be sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform so you can be ready for part two, where we'll finish off from the Goodbye Lullaby era onwards. And please don't forget to take a minute to leave a rating or review to help more fans find the show. We're currently streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, and Audible. Join me again next time on the Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast. The Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast is hosted, produced, and edited by Andrea DiFrancesco. Theme music is HD and Lights by J. Powell Flicks. Follow the latest podcast news on Instagram at bestdamnavrilpod or email bestdamnavrilpod@yahoo.com.